Hi guys, welcome back to The Baseline. Hope everybody's having a great day. Today we're going to be talking about the P Diddy verdict, the breakdown, the yuck factor attached to all this stuff. So let me hit you guys with a quick question, right? What's worse, spending your life behind bars for crimes you didn't commit, or spending a few years locked up for the nasty ones that you did? So because today we're ripping open the real life courtroom circus that just went on. And it all surrounded around P Diddy, or should I say Mr. Puff Puff or Mr. Baby Oil. I don't know, I hate these stories. But this is about a man who really went from platinum hits to metal toilets. So buckle up, this one's gonna be a messy one for sure. So picture this, you're lying on a thin mat, you know, staring at concrete, heart pounding so hard, you think it's going to crack your ribs from the inside out because you just heard three words nobody ever wants to hear in their life, which is life without parole. Yeah, that was the vibe for P Diddy not too long ago. So the man who once had the club just jumping was now hearing clanging steel doors every time he closed his eyes. No luxury suite this time, no private jet, just a cell, a steel toilet, and that smell that's exactly like regret. And include that cold realization that in federal prison, your last name means absolutely nothing. Can you imagine that? Can you place yourself there? That's got to be a crazy feeling. So that's the sound of a platinum record scratching to a dead stop, I'm sure from his ears at least. But what did he actually beat, and what are the charges that actually stuck? So let's get clear on what actually went down, because social media got this mess twisted up like a bad remix so far. So he was staring down RICO charges, sex trafficking, violence, I mean the works, right? And it's the kind of stuff that locks you up till your grandkids forget your name. But the jury, oh man, the jury, they took that big ugly pile of charges, poked at it, sniffed it, and tossed most of it right out. Not guilty on the RICO charge, not guilty on sex trafficking, guilty on the Mann Act, which basically means transporting someone across straight lines for the purposes of prostitution. So not quite mob boss for life, but more like creepy cross-state pimp type of a conviction, right? And before you get it twisted, that's still a federal felony. But there's levels to this. Life in prison turned into maybe a few years with time off for good behavior. You know, he got kind of lucky with all this stuff. But the defense strategy, was it smart or was it somewhat suicidal? So here's the twist. His lawyers pulled a move so risky, it made Ocean's 11 look somewhat tame, right? The jury told the jury essentially that he's violent. Yeah, he's rough. He basically a walking red flag in a shiny suit. But this was domestic drama, not organized crime. That's what they were trying to say. So basically admit he's a menace, but spin it like it's a relationship drama. And guess what? It kind of worked. They nuked the RICO angle by hammering consent. The jury looked at Cassie Ventura's text, the infamous "I can't wait for the freak off" messages, and thought, maybe it's not exactly human trafficking material. And it sounds wild, you know, but they admit he's toxic, but they dodged life in prison. And that's like telling your teacher, you know, you didn't study, but you're still getting a B+. It's a little nuts. But how many years is he actually going to do? And that's the next big $1 million question. How many years will P Diddy do? You know, how many years will he actually spend hugging that steel toilet? Federal guidelines say each Mann Act tops out at 10 years. So he's got 2 counts, 2 separate occasions. So in theory, 20 years max. But wait, here's where the legal math, it hits you kind of like bad algebra homework sometimes. The judge can run them concurrently, which means at the same time, or consecutively, which is back to back. And prosecutors want the harsh version, of course, and the defense wants the cupcake version, of course. Now, if the judge buys the government's math, he's looking at 51 to 63 months. So that's around 5 years. But thanks to credit for time already served, good behavior, maybe a little bit of a rehab program sprinkled on top of it, he's probably looking more at 2 to 3 years. Yeah, you heard me, that the man who once lived like Gatsby on steroids might be out in time to drop another comeback album. But who really knows? So what's your guys' opinion? Was justice served, or did money and lawyers flip the scales again? Let me know in the comments section below what you guys think. Now, here comes the biggest twist. How did they snitch on themselves? Now, want to know what really slammed the cell door on him? I think it was his own team to some extent. They leaned so hard into the, yeah, he's violent, but it's not RICO defense. The judge turned around and said, cool, so you admit he's violent, no bail. So they kind of screwed themselves out of bail. And basically they won the big case, but they lost the little ones. And that's like beating Bowser, but tripping over a Goomba at the finish line. So while they begged for bail, the judge went, nah, if he's violent, he's staying put, and enjoy the view from behind bars. Now, why this case blew up? Now, here's where the story has people glued to their screens. It's really messy. It's complicated. It's everything we pretend polite society doesn't have. You know, you got money, sex, power, betrayal, giant payoffs, hotel rooms, ruined by gallons of baby oil. It's a reality show, but with real victims and real prison time. And you know what? That mess makes headlines. It sells ads. It's Netflix waiting to happen. Meanwhile, real survivors watch this circus and wonder, did the system help them? Or did it just give everyone another juicy tabloid moment? And that's the uncomfortable part nobody really tweets about, the survivors and what they go through. So, which brings us to the jury, right? People forget the jury holds the ultimate mic drop. Not Twitter, not TikTok. 12 ordinary people stare at text messages, lawyer tricks, crocodile tears, and decide if you get a bed or a bunk. This jury saw a messy, toxic, I can't even call it a love story. It's just a weird story. And they didn't buy the whole villain package. They said, yeah, he crossed the line, but not that line. And that's how you end up with the yuck factor still intact. But a lifetime sentence, that's off the table. So what's next? It's going to be the sentencing showdown. What's next for Sean Combs? So between now and October, I think October 3rd, right? Probation is going to pull apart his whole life. Childhood, finances, relationships, secrets. That pre-sentence report will read like a biography nobody wants on their coffee table. Then the lawyers will fight over every single line. Was he sorry enough? Should he get a discount for admitting a tiny bit of guilt? Does he deserve a slap or a hammer? And the judge holds the last card. He can listen to the victims. He can weigh the vibe of the courtroom, and he can decide if this is about punishment or headlines. So one twist, he's allowed to consider the stuff Diddy was acquitted of. Messed up, right? But you beat a charge, but it can still sneak back in during sentencing. And that's how federal court rolls sometimes. They want that final word. Now, what's the bigger picture to all this? Did the system win or did the system lose? So when the dust settles, what's the lesson? Did the defense prove that with enough money you can bend the system? Or did the jury prove that the government can't just throw spaghetti at a wall and hope RICO sticks? I'll tell you what I see. A messy win for the defense, a bigger loss for the system's credibility, and a question mark for real survivors out there watching. This is why we can't just headline surf. We got to read between the lines, and the way that you guys are doing it right now. So where do we land with all this? Mr. Diddy's heart was pounding without a doubt. Now he's counting down months at this point instead of decades, which I'm sure is a relief to him, but not the victims. And the victims got some closure, but maybe not the hammer they actually wanted. Now, the legal system got exposed for all its loopholes and last-minute plot twists as well. And you, well, I guess you and I and us just got the real story, you know, no sugar, no filter. Anywho, guys, I appreciate you guys watching The Baseline, and stay sharp, stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next round. All right, thanks again for watching, everybody. Cheers.